has. Just, I'd say that is the most enjoyable day with cars I can remember for a I was about 8 years old.
I just couldn't believe. I've only read about this thing, and then it just drives past me with some dude wearing a helmet.
I've just started to calm down. I know I've just seen what he said, and I've just seen he's on board, and I thought, good on you. Go and land one on him. Be like a proper racing driver from years old.
Hello, and welcome to the Collecting Addicts podcast, episode number 62. Someone's favourite motorway, not mine. And the good news is that myself and Chris Cooper are on the Terp, so this is going to get lively. Oh, Edward's on it.
Oh, everyone is.
Neil's got a board meeting tomorrow.
He's on the gym.
Right, here we go. So we're going to start off with a little recap of what we've done in cars this week. I'm going to start with Neil Clifford because he normally has done the most interesting things in cars this week.
Well, I don't even think we spoke about the previous week, which was our members meeting.
Yes.
So, members meeting, I could talk about that for an hour. I could talk about my lovely Saturday evening spent with Manish at a very, very lovely place called Kicklow Spaces in Petersfield, where I was just an attendee, but Manish did a lovely personal overview of the Senna movie for a few people. That was really lovely. Well done, Manish. But I won't talk about any of those. I'm doing a Chris Cooper. What I'm going to talk about is Bicester Heritage yesterday. Ooh. I'm sure we're all going to talk about that because I think most of us were there. The element I'd like to talk about, and by the way, the tickets, it's easier to get a ticket for Taylor Swift than a ticket for Bicester Heritage. I think they're restricted, bless them, on the number of people, because you could probably sell 3 times the amount of tickets, because it is the new number one automotive event in the UK, obviously apart from Collecting Cars Coffee Run, but it's brilliant. But what I'd like to talk about particularly for 30 seconds is not necessarily all the cars, every single car you could possibly ever name was there. It's the people. I took one photograph, and that is always a good sign for me that I've enjoyed myself with human beings as opposed to on my own looking at cars. I enjoy both. But actually, it's bloody good for your mental health, getting out and about, seeing other humans, other lovely people that love our little world of automotive. And I reckon I sort of just chatted away for 3 hours, had a few lovely coffees, saw lots of mates. Just brilliant. And congratulations to our good friend Philip and the gang at Bicester, because they've nailed it. It's absolutely splendid. And there should be more of them. I know that probably, again, for moany neighbours, they can only do 3 or 4 a year. They could be monthly. It's where my peoples go.
Yeah. Here.
Totally. They used to do 4 a year when they started.
They did.
I think they did 4 last year, including the
flywheel.
The flywheel. Yeah.
Not a June one though. It's next one's October.
Yeah. It is, which is and they started selling tickets today. So if you want a ticket, go get online now. Yeah.
It's
lovely. It's just great. Sorry, Chris.
I don't know. So I had lots of nice speaks with people, and I had a chat to these 3 young lads who were a part of some sort of Oxford University motorsport club, and they had done some racing, and they were just nice young people. And I found myself, as I often do, sounding like such an old twit, but they were saying they were just sort of gushing with what was available to see and touch, and that normally there was sorry, that's my daughter. Off you go. I'm doing a podcast. I'll call you later on, and I love you dearly. Bye-bye. And
I've just got a voice note from Chris Harris. What?
And they said also, not only do you see a lovely car, but there's normally an interesting person that's bought the car next to the vehicle to tell you the story of the car.
Yeah.
I just said this I'm so glad for you because I never had that. I think many of us here, our car enthusiasm and motorsport enthusiasm was internalized. It was either you watched it on the telly, normally against the family's wishes, or you read Autosport or Autocar on the Tuesday or the Wednesday afterwards. But now there's a chance for young people to go there, see the cars, talk to people. I just think it's fantastic. I'll tell you what Bicester Heritage, the Scramble is for me. It's like a sort of three-dimensional real internet. You know, the internet gave us this access to the cars, but now you can actually go and see the cars. I was talking to someone and that Lotus Can-Am car just drove past me. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Honestly, I nearly did a shit out of my eyeballs. I was so excited. I just couldn't believe. I've only read about this thing and then it just drives past me with some dude wearing a helmet.
It's
amazing.
amazing.
I think for me, obviously the site leads itself to being, you know, you've got to walk around and move about, and there just doesn't feel like there's any sort of VIP area or VIP parking. You know, you can sort of mill around, and there's this car. You know, there's something amazing. You know,
everywhere.
Yep. No, it's the best. It's the best event in the UK for the gathering of people like us. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chris Cooper. I'm munching on Chris because it's the evening and I'm allowed to. What would you like to talk about?
So I second all of that. I think it's almost like I've used this analogy before, and I thought about it yesterday because you get this weird, really, really peculiar, overexcited anxiety of I want to go and look at everything, and it's quite. I don't know whether to go. I went yesterday with Finn and Cam, and Lynn, my wife, came with us as well. She came with a few years ago. Let's all go together, and it was really lovely. Quite a cold day for those who were there, but it was really, really lovely. And you just you say, I want to see everything. I want to take all of them home. They're just the people think it's really interesting. A lot of people, I'm sure everybody, all of us who were there yesterday, some very nice people who listened to this podcast came up to us sort of all through the day, really. And the thing that I found most extraordinary about it really was because we would kind of think, the people who listen to this are all old farts like us. And there are some, I'm sure, wonderful old fartish people, but they're all young. They're all old age. They're all ages. And like you said, Monkey, with your three chums from Oxford Motor Club, a lot of young people and sort of dads with their kids were there. And I said to a number of people yesterday, I feel really optimistic about our passion because there are young people enjoying it. As you said, we didn't have that when we were their age. And it's just it was just really, really, really lovely and wonderful. And you could spend all day there, every weekend there, talking to people about stuff. There was an Oldsmobile 1957, 58, enormous coupe wagon thing, just as you come in the main gate. We'll talk about it later in terms of how many things could you fit in the boot of it. I mean, I would never have thought I would have found that extraordinary, but just the variety and old Land Rover series and the intercooler, you know, our chums there with the wonderful McLarens ahead. It was all very lovely. And Monkey, you did a very entertaining turn in the shed to a very engaged crowd of people looking at. It was very good. It's very good. But there's another story. It's related to this I wanted to tell. So, and it relates to something we talked about a few weeks ago. Remember, I told a story about an SL 600 I saw quite by chance
up in Scotland,
driving down the A93 between Ballater. Actually, no, it's between Bankery. It's a Boyne on the A93. Come out of Aberdeen down Royal Deeside. I only saw it because we were stopped there for a while on the way out, and a petrol tanker was reversing into the petrol station. I just look around and I noticed this service station. And I thought, I'll look at that on the way back. Last week, I had a little note from somebody called Johnny. And I've asked him whether I can share this, and he said, "Okay." So Johnny Gordon, it's about you. And he said, he wrote to me last week, and he said, "I hope you don't mind me contacting you on LinkedIn, blah, blah, blah. If you haven't guessed it, this is about the SL 600 in a Boyne." Immediately after seeing the episode on that Friday morning, I decided to contact the Aboyne service station to inquire about the availability of the car. It was in fact, on sale privately, and the service station was doing the owner a favor. They gave me his number and I called him. He was a lovely gentleman who was curious as to why almost 18 months after the car being on display, there was suddenly an enormous amount of interest in his SL600. I don't think I was the first to call. I told him about Collecting Addicts, poor chap, and how it had come to be on the episode. He wasn't aware of the podcast, lucky fella, but confessed that as a petrol head, he should probably watch the show. So I sent him the link. He talked through the history of the car. I won't say who it used to belong to, but it used to belong to a pilot of a very well-known international entrepreneur who recently gave up ownership of a London football club. That one.
Yes.
That one.
Yes.
So he'd done 81,000 miles and had considerable amount of work done at the SL shop in Stratford-on-Avon, those lovely chaps who were there yesterday as well, showing everybody their lovely cars. MOT had expired in November. We have a 3-year-old boy, he and his wife, and we were looking for a more family-orientated touring estate car as a second car. This is the best bit. But we just couldn't resist the opportunity to get our hands on an SL 600 V12 instead. Couldn't get up there, so we bought it. Had it shipped down to where he lives in the northeast of England.
Brilliant.
Sent me a whole bunch of photographs. He and I have exchanged a few notes about it. And he said, he sent me a note over the weekend. And he said, it's been fascinating to see our 3-year-old boy, Gene, interacting with the car. The way he acts with the SL compared to the Tesla we have, he explained that he used to live in California. So I guess if you live in California, you end up owning a Tesla. He obviously doesn't have any preconceived views on electric vehicles, but his level of excitement and interaction towards Mercedes is incomparable. He loves it. This is the most wonderful and uplifting story. And I was so pleased, Johnny, that you wrote, because it just gave me faith that there are people out there still prepared to do mad, barking, mental things on a whim because petrol still courses through the veins of the nation. So I love it. So he sent me some photographs and I've said be in touch. And so we'll keep you updated, and Johnny, keep photographs coming. But so the people we met, Neil's right. It's about the people.
Yeah.
In our past. So
yeah. Brilliant.
We've had a lovely week in cars, and Johnny, well done for buying the Aboyne SL600.
Lucky swine. Wish I had it. I want a 600. I've only got a 500. I want a 600 now. Manish, what have you done this week?
Well, a couple of things in reverse order. I have to say, I loved the members meeting to start off with. That was really one of the most exciting afternoons ever. We got there on Sunday, and I have to say, I was looking forward to hearing and seeing Gerhard Berger drive that '89 Ferrari. I mean, I can't explain. I mean, for me, that is the most beautiful modern Formula One car, full stop. Can
I stop you there? That's a really, really bold statement from someone like you. I think I might agree, but do you really think that is the most beautiful? I think it might be, mightn't it? The Leighton House was close, the new car, but that might be it, mightn't it?
Better, more beautiful even than the Jordan. You know, the 91 Jordan is a hell of a beautiful car as well. 88 McLaren, the 91 McLaren, but the most beautiful car is that high airbox 89 Ferrari. I just like that. In fact, in 1994, the Museum of Modern Art did an exhibition on Ferrari. They had the original Ferrari 125. Then next to it, they had a Ferrari F40. And next to that, they had the F189. And there was something about the three of them next to each other in that beautiful Rosso Corsa that you just went, yeah, that just makes sense. Anyway, I do know Gerhard a little bit, and he called while we were driving. And he said, "Hi, don't rush. It's not running." And I looked at my phone, and I was actually going to cry. I know this sounds terrible. I was this little kid I just have never, ever seen one on the road. I've never heard one with the engine running. And I couldn't believe it. And he said, basically, they had a technical problem from the day before. Well, the technical problem from the day before was just belching oil smoke. I have no idea why. I think some kind of seal or gasket must have gone.
Might have been the hole in the engine. That's often where oil leaks out of.
Just honestly, Chris, I can't laugh about this even now. It
No,
was
I know you mean.
anyway.
I think
So we got there, and he pinged me and said, "Meet me by the car." So we went, and the whole idea was he was going to show, but he was besieged. I think it's the only way. And he did that Clint Eastwood thing. He did a few photos with people, and then Clint Eastwood's famous thing was always give people autographs and be polite, just never stop walking. And that's basically what he did. He just walked. And I mean, what was incredible was probably 30 people must have said hello to me and talked about the podcast, the vast majority of whom were young. So you know, that whole atmosphere is desperately infectious. Then we had lunch, which was a lot of fun. Met his youngest boy and his cousin. We were just talking about something that we may or may not do in the future. And off he went. And I, you know, wandered around like all of you. I found 2 Brabham BT44s, one in the original white before Bernie got any sponsorship, then one in that kind of Count Rossi martini colors. And I phoned Bernie and I said, I've finally seen one. And he said, they're redos. They're not the original car. Just ruined it for me. So apparently they're built off plan. I mean, they're apparently perfect, but they're replicas. They're not the real thing. So we wandered over, had a look, and then I heard a Can-Am car for the first time in my life going very quickly. And 1,000 horsepower without any kind of turbocharger, without any kind of energy recovery system, just going past you at 150 miles an hour.
That's the petrol head's dream when a ton of Can-Am cars comes past. That feeling through the body is just brilliant.
God, my body was shaking. I had dysrhythmia, the whole thing. It was just, I'd say, that is the most enjoyable day with cars I can remember for a very, very, I was about 8 years old. Or, I mean, just literally all day. It was the most incredible experience. And then my second silly little experience was I bought the Ferrari.
Wow.
I bought it.
Does that mean the podcast is over?
No, I did, so a little tiny shout out. You were talking about Bicester Heritage.
You fucking did what?
I bought the Ferrari. I bought it. I did it. I bought it. I paid for it. It needs a few little bits and pieces doing, but it's so gorgeous. I've called her Lola. She's this metallic black.
Her name is Lola.
She was a showgirl.
She was a show, or her name was Lola.
I don't know whether that should be a fast hand clap or a slow hand clap, but Manish, I feel like those times when we were sort of 16 to 18 years old and young men would have significant moments in their lives. And when they would share those experiences, you tap them on the back and say, well done.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'd like to do a little shout out to Hangar 136 at Bicester Village and another little shout out to Mr. Cooper and Mr. Clifford, because Mr. Cooper, in his fantastically avuncular way, straight fraternal way, when he heard I was interested in the car, just got on the phone and said, "Oi, is this a legit car? Because this is a mate of mine." And it came back with a couple of thumbs up. And then the wonderful Mr. Clifford tried to find me someone to look over the car, emailed the person who basically is looking after the car to sell it, and said, the thing is absolutely beautiful. Had all the bits and pieces done. And my last little shout out would be, if you're a bit of a novice at this, like me, and don't quite have the balls to get onto collecting cars, which I feel I may ascend to now that my buying a car for myself virginity has been op-ed, you could do so much worse than end up with a very nice man called Lawrence Pawson, who will show you the car, he will let you sit in the car, he will let you drive the car, and he will not bother you because he's a couple of steps ahead of you. He knows whether you want it or you don't, and he's just very kind, and he gently takes you through the process. And I have to say, I've never been happier, more excited, or more impatient than I am right now. I am in the middle of that Venn diagram.
The real addiction starts here at Manish.
I know.
It's a lovely start. Alternatively, you could crack open a good bottle of malt and get bidding on collecting cars tonight on any old stuff that you see. So there's 2 ways to this.
I think Lola was a man in the.
Well, I think that was the point exactly. Lola's
a Can-Am car. Lola's alter ego is a Can-Am.
Yeah, no, that's
what a heartwarming story. But it's a bit like getting to the end of The Sopranos. You know, have we walked into the restaurant where the family's dining? Is that the end of the podcast?
No. It's not. It's not the end. It's just the end of the beginning.
Okay, right. Okay, right. I like nicely put. Edward, what have you done this week?
Well, I'm not going to go too much over Bicester, but obviously Bicester was great, and thanks for everyone who came and tapped on our shoulders and thanked for the podcast. You know, it sort of started with 5 of us just having a chat, and to know you enjoy it so much means a lot. And there was a lovely gentleman that walked up to me that I drove from central London, and it took me at 6:30 in the morning 55 minutes to get to Bicester. This gentleman.
Why do you share this? Why do you share this stuff?
Because an hour, a little run up for a sort of a coffee, what I thought was a coffee morning, but now you need all day, and it is an all-day event. This gentleman came from Plymouth in his TR7. That's 44 years old, totally original, and he has owned it for 20 plus years. So
that's brilliant.
Well done for you for driving up from Plymouth. And then the other thing, Neil and I finished last week's episode when we said one thing we need to talk about is resto mods and copies, or what word did we use? Replicas.
That's right. Yeah.
And we were quick to put down the Chesil. Now,
only on a Q plate.
Only on a Q plate. But
Chesels are good.
You know, we have our views, and we are allowed our views. But I want to apologise to Sadie. And Sadie put a comment on the YouTube channel. Sadie is 60 years old. She, back in California in the day, she restored a 356 notchback by herself. Wow. And when she moved back to the UK, her husband bought her a Chesil Speedster, and she loves it. Yeah. So I don't think it matters about the car. It matters about the person and who drives it more than anything else. Anyone can make a car be cool. I probably couldn't make a Chesil Speedster look cool because I'm not cool. But Sadie, just from reading your note, I bet you make a Chesil look cool. Chris and I in New Zealand met a lady called Choppy, who is a helicopter pilot. You can imagine a lady in a male-dominated world called Choppy, who's a helicopter pilot. She was a cool dude as well. Sadie, you probably need to meet her. And then my final point, and this goes back to our motorway chat the other day. Where would you like a motorway? Why does the M40 go from 3 lanes heading towards London into 2 lanes and back into 3 lanes again? I think is it Beaconsfield or before Beaconsfield?
I think
it's High Wycombe.
There's a pinch at that one junction.
Yeah, I think it might be High Wycombe. Yeah, it's a nightmare on a Sunday. It's backed up about.
Yeah, it is always backed up under the.
What's that all about? That needs fixing.
Yeah, it does.
Along with the potholes.
Although I have to say, one of the things after our little chat about potholes, this week in cars for me, you suddenly notice how bad. They're worse than I ever realised and remembered. We're recording this on a Monday evening, and some of you may have seen in the papers or internet today, our esteemed Prime Minister was giving a speech, and on front of his lectern was a little sign saying, "Stop the boats," when in fact, it should have said,
yes.
Yeah.
This was sent to me by somebody who writes me on LinkedIn, Brandon. So Brandon had this done. So Brandon, well done. We're gonna stop the potholes.
And I've got one final thing to say, which was about cars. These windscreenless, very expensive cars that Aston Martin, Ferrari, McLaren, and I don't know who else built those. They made no sense until Elva put a windscreen on McLaren put an Elva on the windscreen. That is a great looking car.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It was an original Elva racing at the members meeting.
You held on to the intonation of the word car. It made me think there was another word coming, but there wasn't. That was the end of your sentence. All of us, I think, were waiting for the next word. You didn't say car. You went car. Almost like an Australian.
What have you done in cars this week, Chris?
I've always have a good week with cars because I'm always in my cars. So Last Tuesday, I woke up in a bit of a funk. Didn't really like anyone. I do this sometimes. And I just thought, I've got to go away and travel at the end of the week. I'm going to drive down to Cornwall to my favourite spot. I'm going to get up early, make sure if I wake up at 5, I'll get in the car and drive down. I got in the old M5 touring, drove down to see my friend Tony down in Cornwall, went down to look at the beach where several members of my family appeared to sort of be buried. And I walked the dog. And I spent another day bonding with my M5 touring, just reminded me how great the motor car is. I couldn't have done that in a train. I didn't want to be with other people. I was hermetically sealed in my own little shithole 7-plate box, just me with my audiobooks. There's a romanticism and something sophisticated about the motor car that I can't explain to people that don't love them. But I couldn't have done that in any other way. And that day couldn't have ended as well as it did unless I'd had a motor car. I couldn't have done it on a train or a plane or a boat or anything else. So last Tuesday, I was just reminded it could have been any car. It just needed to be a car. It could have been someone else's car. It just so happened it was mine that day. I then went abroad and I drove a new Aston Martin, which is embargoed. So I can tell you it's an Aston Martin. That's about it. I think it looks great. But I can't say anything else or I'll get sued. And I don't want to be sued by Mr. Stroll because I suspect he's dealing with his son's outburst at the weekend, but that's coming later in our F chat. And then I went to the Scramble, and I won't say any more about the Scramble because everyone's already eulogised about it, but it's really quite a great event. And then I've had 2 lovely things go wrong with my old cars. I'm realising I am ultimately a masochist. Anyone that loves old cars is a masochist. Yeah. Not only are you willing to accept things going wrong, you kind of want them to go wrong. And when they're not going wrong, I reckon you're humming a bit and ticking, going, well, when's it going to go wrong? So I got involved in a really good sort of, I wouldn't say dice. I got involved in a situation where I got to demonstrate how well my old M5 performs against the modern AMG, a 64-plate AMG. And let's just say the old M5 held its nerve rather well. But as ever, the light came on, meaning it had shit a lambda sensor. So every time you accelerate hard in the Vita M5, sensor goes bang. And this time it went bang. But then all my airbag lights came on and all my tensioner lights for the seatbelts came on. So I've got the full Christmas tree on. She drives beautifully. I phoned Darren and I said, I think she shit herself. And he went, no. They always do that. So she's in a bit of a struggle. But this morning, the yellow GT3 did something it's only done once before. Because I've done so many miles and I've abused that car so much that I'm discovering things about it that probably no one else is. First of all, the gear lever is, I put a video up on my Instagram. I'm on my 4th or 5th gear lever now. They fall apart if you use them. They weren't designed to do that. And also, as of today, I'm on my 2nd seat runner. I have the carbon bucket seat. I'm very lucky with the handle that's just under your left kneecap. It's so perfectly placed. You lean forward and she's just there in the palm of your hand.
It's a lovely handle.
But the handle came off. The handle came off today in my hand, and detached itself from the seat runner. And and it's done that before. And it did it before at 32. I wrote it down at 32,000 miles. And this has happened at now on 70,000 miles. So I can tell you categorically that the handle lasts about 32 to 35,000 miles. And then it's and that's what happens when you live with a car. You learn these things. So, again, thank you to everyone that came to Bicester. That needs no more eulogising. It is for me. And I think actually Neil and Edward nailed it there for me. There's something about the fact that, there's no VIP area. There's no special area. It's a meritocracy in a way that, let's say, certain other events in Sussex aren't, and I think it should be celebrated for that.
Yeah.
Moving on, I'll start this one. It's a bit too much for me at the moment, but I'll get through it quickly. All right. Driving gloves.
Oh.
So, I drove past the car on the way to the Scramble, and as I drove past this car, I could see it was a similar mark to the car I was driving. And I waited for that sort of, not a bug jam, one of those, but normally someone gives you a little wave. And sure enough, this person gave me a wave. But as they raised their right hand in a slightly regal fashion to acknowledge me passing, I saw they were wearing a driving glove.
Uh-oh.
And I had a moment where
was that singular? Was that
Well, actually, it's a bloody good question, Manish, because I don't know if it was. If it was singular, then we're dealing with a serial killer.
No, that's cool. If it's singular, I reckon that's super cool.
Well, that's
a bit Michael
okay.
Jackson.
So, anyhow,
Exactly.
so I've seen the glove. I've seen the glove.
Michael
Then
Jackson's glove.
I've had one of those sort of internal cacophonies in your head. I've gone, I like the fact that we're in similar cars and he's waved at me and I've waved back. I'm not sure about the gloves. What judgment I'm making now? If he's wearing gloves, what do I think? And my initial reaction was, I think he might be a bit of a nutter because he's wearing gloves in a street car because it's got a covered roof and he doesn't need to. And I suddenly thought to myself, I'm overthinking this. Just put your foot down and go. And then I thought, I need to share this with my fellow addicts. So what do we make of driving gloves? Over to you, Neil Clifford, who, for those of you who can't see it, is wearing a pair of driving gloves now.
Quite
He's wearing a pair
shiny.
of driving
gloves at
He's
that.
wearing a pair of driving gloves at the same colour as my palms.
But these match the colour of my interior of my Spada, isn't that normal?
I thought you'd say something else there. I'm glad you stuck to the Spada.
I'm going to have right. You're all a bit out of control. Neil Clifford, what do you make of driving gloves?
Chris, what car was he in again? Sorry, was it a vintage car?
No, it wasn't. It was in a he was in a Porsche.
Oh, I think
in a car that was made after 1975.
I like a driving glove, but I don't really wear them. I wish I could. For me, it's a bit like the bow tie. I love a bow tie. It's like the cravat. It's like braces, let's say, or the bowler hat, or in fact, the thing I think is the most chic, which I love. I used to wear my mum's actually. Oh, that's a bit of an embarrassing. Riding boots. I love a riding boot.
The beer delivery that just came in.
Carry on.
I think these things are a little bit from the olden days, but it's sad that it would be lovely that fashion came back, and maybe it will, because that's a great thing about fashion. Maybe it will come round that we'll all want to dress like Steve McQueen again, you know.
Did he use driving gloves in that movie?
Well, I can't remember, but I would imagine in his 275 he had a lovely pair of old driving gloves thrown in the center console. The only issue with driving gloves nowadays, which of course one doesn't do this, is unless you have the very posh ones from Hermes, not many of them got the little metal button in the finger. So in case you need to look at your phone when you stop, of course, not when you're driving, and that would be illegal. But
those made by Hermes?
Yeah, well, other gloves are available, but they have a little metal button in that finger there on both gloves, so you can use your phone and not take your gloves off.
Oh, you wouldn't want that.
Well, I think we're all a little bit addicted to our phones, aren't we? And when we stop for our little coffee and we've still got our gloves on, and well
recovered. I like the word "stop." Well recovered, Neil. Very well.
Yeah. But I think all of those things, particularly the riding boots, in a sort of Boney M sort of way.
Owning who?
Boney M. Don't you remember those?
Yes, sorry.
Yeah,
as you were. Yeah.
I just think it would be lovely if all that fashion came back. So I'm a supporter.
Very good beer, by the
I
way.
do wear them in my 70s Lamborghini.
Well, Neil, where are those driving gloves from?
Connolly.
They're beautiful.
Right. We've got one in favour. Edward Lovett, driving gloves. Yes or no?
So when you shared this topic this morning when I woke up and I thought it was Tuesday we were recording, I thought I'm not sure I've got much of a view on those. Thinking about it today, I respect the fact that certain people find driving their cars, and it might be a particular car, it might be all their cars, a religious experience. And they have a process. They get in the car, they turn the ignition on, they warm it up, they hear the fuel pumps tick, they put their gloves on, and it's all a part of the occasion. I'm going for a drive in that car or my car or whatever it is. And I love the fact that some people make and have the ability, because I don't personally, have the ability to make a real occasion out of driving their cars or a certain car. The other thing I really love, and this is also a rare thing, There are certain
By
cars.
the way, before you say anything else, can I just congratulate you on the most fantastic summary of the way that someone might prepare and the specialness of a drive? That was fucking brilliantly put, Edward. Carry on. Sorry. Really put.
So there is a car I remember buying back in my days at Dick Lovett, which was a Ferrari Daytona.
Oh.
And not the person I bought it off, but I think one or two people bought it from. Not the person I bought it from, but one or two people previous. His original driving gloves were in the car, but also so was the pencil and the notebook, which he documented every single drive he did in the car.
Logbook.
Yeah, and I just love the fact that someone took the time to, and I actually, when I bought my Singer, I tried to do the same thing. And I think I got to about 4 drives where I forgot to write the mileage and where I fueled it and where I went. But I just, that sort of spiritual approach to driving your car, I've got a huge amount of respect for.
Do you think Alan Clark wore driving gloves?
Yes.
You know what? I think he did. Yeah, he must have done.
But if you
There
go
are
back,
pictures of him wearing them.
if you go back to these books, and these you buy them at those old jumpers in Bewley. Look, 1966, 10 quid for every edition of Motor.
Brilliant.
For that month, for that year. And if you go back and look in, that was another magazine. Look in. Do you remember that? Anyway, you look in. That was that was really shit looking. But if you go in here, there will be driving gloves for sale.
Yeah.
And driving shoes.
Yes.
Oh.
And
people
those safety caps.
People were
felt.
They bought the right. Here we go. John Surtees driving gloves. Look, I'm so blind I can't read it. Perfect control and comfort from these touch thin leather gloves with ventilated fingers, chamois leather buckle, and elasticated wrists. Available in black only. Sizes small, medium, and large. 69 pence, whatever those shillings. I don't know what it was then. Look, those little gloves there.
Brilliant.
That is brilliant. Does it say the perfect finish every time?
Well, I would say there is something of the condom about that description.
There is, yeah. Also, Finn and Cameron, if you can hear this and you're in the background, don't give him another beer because he's way too chopsy already.
Sorry.
Carry on.
But Neil, as you just shown that those magazines that you bought for £10 from Bewley.
Look.
I don't know if my mother definitely won't listen to this podcast, and I'm sure my father won't because I'm on it. But I wonder if my mother I wonder if my mother thinks it was a good investment leather bounding all of my father's motorsport and autosport magazines over about 30 years.
I think that's a really today. I was in the Motorsport UK head office today in Bicester. And in the little staff welfare area, I could still be there now. There was a whole bunch of old copies of Motorsport magazine, Autosport, the adverts, both the classifieds, because, we remember when Motorsport had adverts from car dealers in the front and the back, and early 1980s BMW adverts and 735s for just wonderful. And there was that felt cap thing, that the safety cap. Somehow this little peaked cap, like a little peaked cap thing, it was this little layer of felt, which must have been about 1/4 of an inch thick. Somehow this is going to save you from decapitation or worse, because it was probably the Sterling Moss or the Tony Brooks or something, safety cap. Hot Fuzz.
Sorry, what's that got to do with the gloves?
I'm just thinking at that era, you could have, all of those things were fine.
Lovely.
They were fine. And I think they should
lovely. Be fine. They should still be fine.
They can still be fine. Hot Fuzz, the movie that Quentin
Can
Tarantino...
I say that, just very quickly, my wife produced that movie.
Well, she'll be pleased to hear.
Okay, stop there. That is in my top 5 funny films ever made.
You'll all be pleased to hear. I mean, the boys...
Natasha Wharton, exactly.
The boys can recite every single line from it.
You can't be serious.
And they'll be pleased to hear, they can, and we watch it the whole time. Quentin Tarantino, no lesser person than him, describes it as the perfect movie. He could not improve it in any way. Can
we acknowledge one point after the road traffic accident when they're by the wreckage, and the female PC stands there, and the bloke that does the sort of Somerset Norfolk accent, whatever it is, just goes tits.
I'm glad you raised that scene, because that's the scene I was going to. Because the actor David Threlfall, the actor who plays the slightly lovey and over the top theatre producer with his leading lady, who's also his lady, in that scene where Sergeant Angle stops him, the guy is wearing driving gloves in his, is it a Saab convertible?
It is.
Is that what he's got the driving gloves
He's
on?
wearing his driving gloves.
Great or good.
That's how perfect Hot Fuzz is.
He's definitely a serial killer.
Oh,
I think there's a place. I mean, Alcantara steering wheels have no place on a road car. They're just not necessary. But if you did, then, you know, when we go on track, you'd wear these kind of silly things with the little rubbery bits on these things. Rubbery bits are really important. They give you grip. Even when things get slippery, they give you grip.
But they're a new invention. So I'm a bit of a hoarder, so I keep old stuff. The one thing you shouldn't do is keep your old racing gloves from 25 or 20-something years ago, because they were all leather. And the only way to
go a bit
leather,
crusty.
well, the way that you had to activate the leather was to wet them before you got in the car.
Yeah.
So every racing driver would have their mechanic or whatever come up and wet the glove, so then it would grip the wheel perfectly. But if you didn't have any sort of water on it, you'd spit on the bloody things. And honestly, over time, they're not great. You leave them in a box, everything goes a bit purple and green. They're not ideal. But the modern rubberized glove is quite the invention. It really is.
It is. It is. Yeah. There was the guy. Was a guy in NASCAR.
Chris Cooper. What about driving gloves for the road?
They're not for me personally, but I celebrate those of our listeners and viewers who think that string-backed leather accoutrement to the digits is the height of everything. I celebrate that. In fact, I'll raise my beer glass.
You need to be running the United Nations, Chris. I mean,
if we just did a yes and no podcast, it would only take about 3 minutes.
I know, Chris Cooper. Someone get Chris Cooper another vat of lager. Manish, how? No. Manish, how do you feel about the driving glove?
I own a pair of driving gloves.
What, for the Audi, or review
driving?
No.
You don't do any driving, for fuck's sake.
They're just for walking.
They're just gloves.
They're just gloves.
Slightly drafty gloves.
Right. Okay. I'm gonna have to get control here. We've jumped the shark. So, to be clear, Manish is just told if you've got driving gloves. Neil Clemens points out it doesn't drive, so they're just gloves. Right.
I now have an image of me wearing nothing but driving gloves.
This is the batsman's holding the bowler's willy, isn't it? That's our
okay.
mate.
The only reason I have a pair of driving gloves, and I'm with Mr. Cooper. I mean, if it's your thing, it's your thing. But when I wrote a script called The Bentley Boys, and I wrote it, it's supposed to be a feature years ago, the producers bought me a gorgeous pair of Bentley driving gloves and some Bentley goggles. And I've never worn either.
Do you have them to hand right now, Manish?
I'm sorry.
You should wear them in the front.
There's nothing else on.
That's all I have to say.
Right. Can you do F1 now, please? Because I'm going to go to the
I've not done my driving
room.
glove bit, and I've not done my driving glove bit, and I've budgeted at least 11 minutes for my story. So you better sit fucking tight, all of you. Right, here we go. So there's something about the driving glove that I think has been. This is in defence of driving gloves. They've been unfairly treated by people, including people like me. They have been pigeonholed as an accoutrement of the wrong 'un. and I think it's unfair, and we need to change this. I watched an episode of Inspector Morse last night because I love my Morses, and also my internet shit itself, and it's all I had downloaded on my iPad. It was a 1990 episode called Driven to Distraction, where Morse has to, you might have seen the one. Basically, he thinks the bloke that's done the murdering is a wrong and a slippery character who owns a garage and has some nice fancy cars, but it's actually a guy who is a driving instructor around the back of the facility. And the iconography of this episode, the wrongness, is all centered around the fact that he commits these crimes wearing driving gloves. And there's lots of beautifully shot scenes where he leans to his glove box to take out his tape, and whatever he uses, his apparatus of murder, is in this glove box. But everything is sheathed in these bloody driving gloves. So I did a bit of research this morning. It's amazing how often a director reverts to the glove as being something that's just fundamentally wrong.
Yes.
And particularly the driving glove. So I think it's been unfairly treated. Chris Cooper's researching there furiously, and I'm worried about what he's going to show us, given that he's 7 pilsners down.
No, it's okay. Keep going.
Okay, so I'm in a roundabout fashion, I feel guilty that I've judged the driving glove the way I have. I don't actually want to use them, but I'm not sure they should be a signifier of ultimate wrongness. Is that a fair summary?
I think that's a good summary.
Yeah.
Okay, good. There we go. Moving on. Formula One.
That was him there.
Yes, him. He was the one that did the murdering. Yes.
Yeah, they did some of the scenes at Crowthorne, didn't they?
Yeah.
Around the test track.
Yeah.
Was it in a Vauxhall Omega or something like that, or a Carlton?
It was a Carlton. Yes, it was a Carlton. Yeah. It was the car that did the skids.
Yeah.
Quite good skids as well.
Only place you can come to for stuff like that.
It is, yes. It was a Carlton, and it also was a higher range model because it didn't have wheel covers. It had.
And at some point, Morse went fully lit, locked up, and this chap here very nonchalantly said before he's reaching for the knife, "Nicely done."
I think he does. I think he does do that.
Yeah.
Right, Formula One. So the race itself, Chinese Grand Prix, not that spectacular. Well, there were two inverted commas races, weren't there? But there was lots of kind of fisticuffs and interesting team situations, lots of dynamics worth exploring for the next 8 minutes. Manish, go.
My shout out is to Mr. Lando Norris. And before we get into the fisticuffs, a certain Mr. Harris once corrected me when I had a bit of a rant about tires ruining Formula One. And a certain Mr. Harris said, Formula One has always been a tire limiting formula. And I went, yes, you are right. And that's why I don't think anyone can praise Lando enough. He was in those high-speed corners. We have a certain employee of McLaren's son who works for us. And occasionally we get a little bit of fruity intelligence. And he just said that in high-speed corners, he was pretty much untouchable. You know, he was just braking at exactly the right point, enough steering angle to get the car around the corner without any slippage or correction at all. And he was doing it lap after lap after lap. And that, you know, if you look at the very first part of the race, you know, he was going to eat it up. So shout out to Lando Norris. But my absolute favorite moment the last 48 hours has been the transcript of Daniel Ricciardo going, I'm fucking pissed off. I'm fucking pissed off. He actually uses the F word. And it's like, he's just completely wrong. And he's talking about a Stroll Jr. And I just love the fact he goes, you're in that situation. You look at the car ahead of you. You look at the car ahead of you. Why is his head turned? I've seen his onboard and he's looking at the corner. But the pièce de la résistance is the Lawrence Stroll in, have you seen him in the, what's it called? In The Pen. And he gives this interview, and it's great. He just goes, yeah. It's
that is the best Lance Stroll impersonation ever.
Because I was behind, but I don't really think that's right. Watching that thinking, what? And then just to nuke that to another level, Aston Martin's official Twitter blamed Max Verstappen for that. And that was the absolute cherry on the cake. Max Verstappen apparently slowed the pack down in a safety car thing, thus triggering a chain reaction that one normally finds on a motorway, and the totally innocent Lance Stroll rear-ended poor Daniel Ricciardo, which also actually screwed Oscar Piastri's race. There were two diffusers that were somewhat shattered after that. So, there it is.
Beautifully summarised. Neil Clifford, did you watch it or not? Or did you follow it?
No.
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 Where was it?
I don't know. What time was it? 4 in the morning, 8
No,
hours?
It was at 8.
8 in the morning.
It was at 8.
Was it?
We've been up 5 hours by then.
I was driving to Bicester.
Was it of any interest to you whatsoever?
Yes, it was. I was listening to it on Radio 5 Live. And it was all a bit shite, wasn't it? Because Lewis was getting pissed off and I was annoyed about that. And he was like 15th and then he ended up in 9th or whatever. Yeah, obviously Max won because he's the best and has got the best car. Who came second? Lando, right?
Yeah.
And then Alonso, right? It was good. So he's
It was good and then he wasn't good. Yeah.
But didn't he come third? No.
No.
Way down in the end.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, take an extra stop and put some sauce. Chris Cooper, what do you think?
So I think Mercedes are in dreadful trouble. Not much else to say about Mercedes, really. I think it was very interesting that Toto...
Lewis agrees. Lewis agrees.
Well, it's interesting in one of the interviews, Toto actually referred to him as Hamilton, not Lewis.
Yeah. Did he?
Oh, that's getting a bit sort of putting your affairs in order. So, yeah, they're a bit... I quite liked the Ricciardo rant at Lance Stroll for two reasons. One, because it was at Lance Stroll. And the friendly guy, hey, I'm the smiley guy, bit of Ricciardo disappeared, and he was properly stoked. And he actually said, I've just started to calm down, and now I've just seen what he said, and I've just seen his on board, and I thought, good on you. Go and land one on him. Be like a proper racing driver from years old. Beyond that, I'm struggling to be excited about it, if I'm honest. The Sky thing. Whether now they're on the sort of the budget coverage of F1. Anybody's been watching it. They don't fly everybody out there. So the anchor, which this week was Simon Lazenby, and the two expert pundits, Dill and Karun, they're in Isleworth. So that you do lose a little bit of sort of the banter and so forth. Because in lieu of that, we had Nico Rosberg I thought he looked like he put on quite a bit of weight.
And he's hard to like, isn't he? He's hard to like.
Slightly odd haircut as well. I didn't take to his haircut. But apart from that, I mean, Lando was really good. I think the other thing I thought was interesting so far this year, Oscar Piastri, when he did that sort of easy going to Alpine, no, they've issued that release without my permission. I'm going to McLaren. I'm the best thing ever. And you could have thought, Lando thought, oh God, I've met my match. And last year, Oscar did really, really well. This year, Lando's gone up a level. Oscar must be thinking, wow.
Yeah, that's cool, that is.
Yeah, I think he's doing really, really, he's gone up a level. So, but yeah, we can't help but wait until something changes. I've had a rant about this. If I've read it correctly, the 26 rules, the 2026 rules, because the manufacturers are stipulated, because they're the ones driving it, because they're the ones that produce the engines, 50-50 split between internal combustion engine power and battery power. I'm a failed engineer, but that still makes me an engineer in my book. So part of what happens then is that the petrol engine runs the whole time to run the generator to charge the battery. So those London buses you see going around where the engine sounds like it's revving even when they're stationary, and then the thing moves and the engine note doesn't change. That's sort of, if I understand it correctly, what we're going to get in Formula One cars in 26. Who thought this was a good idea? No. It's sustainable petrol. So I think no. No.
Yeah, this is brilliant. Chris, Edward Lovett, what do you think?
I've almost got nothing to comment. Other than the only thing I will say is I knew what time the Grand Prix was on, and I left London at about 6:20 on Sunday morning, and we were getting set up with the team at the event, and it came one minute to 8, and there were about 5 or 6 of us scrabbling around. Right, who's got it on their iPhone so we can watch the start?
Sky Go, yeah, Sky Go.
And I always love and have always loved the start of a motor race.
Yeah.
Because
standing start. Yeah.
But the standing start, but also you want to watch the first lap because, you know, if Verstappen gets punted off at the first corner, then there's something different going to be happening. If it's raining, anything could happen. And so we watched the first lap, and as he came into the first corner for the second time, he had so many car lengths on number 2 that we were just like, right, let's carry on setting up. And when I watched the recap when I got into bed last night, it was a very quick Sky recap on Facebook, and it was exactly what we predicted. Apart from Alonso's great run into the first corner and killing his tyres.
Yeah.
I think the one thing I took from it that was interesting is I thought Nico Rosberg was mostly woeful. I don't like offering my opinion of commentators and people on television because I know that I had a shit television career and I put my hands up to it. But there's something about him. He just seems to turn up, sort of shit on everyone that was really good, and there's not much positivity about it. There's sort of a certain amount of schadenfreude when people do things wrong, and a shocking lack of sympathy for those that are the conditions that they're working under when they're in the car. And he must know more than anyone. Occasionally he'll say, "You sit low, that's difficult," but surely he's the person that could tell us, like Martin Brundle used to, how difficult it really is. Because we want these, ultimately they're all our heroes. We want to hear them, we want to hear how difficult it is for them and how great they are. We don't want to hear them being reduced to being the status of normal civilians. But he did say one thing that caught my ear, and that was, he was talking about tyre degradation, deg being the word of the last 3 years, and that one of Red Bull's tricks, they think, is that they're using the aero to cool the surface of the tyre. And I hadn't really thought of it that way, but it suddenly opened my mind just how clever Adrian Newey is. Is he managing to flow air onto the rear tyres, the surface of the rear tyres, to keep them cooler? And that's what's helping Max keep the tyres cool at certain stages during the race. It might just be that Max has got the Midas touch through his right pinkies. I don't know. But the idea that Adrian's head is so far beyond everyone else's that 3 years ago he thought, I know, we're going to have a problem with tyres. I'm going to see if we can put air onto the surface of the tyre and keep it cooler. Just left me for about 10 minutes during the race, sort of ruminating, thinking, are they that far ahead of the game? Are they really doing that? What do you think? Do we think they're doing that or not?
Could be.
It could be.
Yeah, it could be.
We'll never know.
Something put Perez in P3, and I'm not sure it was his talent.
Oh,
Al Rosberg.
So,
sorry, just this is not a political thing, but clearly China just feels like it's somewhere you don't necessarily feel you want to watch a Grand Prix. And it's the wrong time. As Neil said, when was it? 4 a.m., 7 a.m. It's sort of like Japan, which is a bit further away. You kind of like, I want to get up and watch that Grand Prix, but I'm just not sure if China has an attraction to get up and watch a Grand Prix on a modern circuit. It's good, but it
produces a bit more. The sprint race was interesting in that bit out the back of the circuit, those sort of the twiddly bits, as I might call them.
Yeah.
And I do think that the sprint race, I mean, Lewis did well in the sprint race. He did too, just in case anyone was fretting over my few words last week about Nelson Piquet Jr.'s demise in the 2004 British Grand Prix Super Cup race. What Lewis did to Lando was essentially what I did to Nelson Piquet Jr. in 2004. In case anybody's wondering, I was mad.
So at I've been to the Shanghai circuit. Two things you didn't know about it. It's nowhere near Shanghai. It's in a sort of industrial estate about 50 miles away. And I've driven 2 cars around it. One was a single-seater that had a weird engine in it from a local manufacturer. And the other car I drove around it was a London taxi, as you do. And it's because they just bought the taxi. That's it. Yeah. Sliding going into P3.
Yeah.
And they just bought Coventry Car Company, whatever. So they said, and I turned up there to drive. I thought I was going to drive an AMG, and they said we haven't got one of those, but we've got a London taxi. You might be doing a couple of laps. So I did. and the first lap was 7 minutes something because she struggled down the back straight.
Yeah.
But I have driven a London taxi around there a few times.
That's
So-
a nice shot, that one, actually. It's a good, that's nicely loaded up. Yeah.
So here we go.
Adrian Newey didn't go to Shanghai because I saw him drive his Valkyrie out of Salon Privé on Friday night into the traffic, and I thought, you cool bastard, just smoking a Valkyrie out onto the embankment.
So is that a statement to say they've got the race sewn up anyway?
Well, I didn't ask him, to be honest, but as you guys probably know, there were 15 Valkyries all lined up at Salon Privé.
Yeah.
Frankly, it was very impressive. You see 15 of those. I mean, and I've got a mate who's got one, and I saw that drive out as well. And there's nothing else like it, whether it's mega reliable or whatever, but I'm told they've fixed all the electronics. It is a very visually impactful thing, like
It is, yeah.
An early Countach. It's pretty impressive.
So I asked my fellow addicts. This is pretty much a one-word answer, not too long. This one. The conventional measurement in journalistic circles for many years for the size of a boot or a trunk, depending on which side of the Atlantic you're listening to this podcast, has been measured in golf bags. I find that slightly odd. It was always manufacturers boasting that you could fit 2 or 1 golf bags in your car. I love golf. In fact, I love watching the Masters last weekend. But I do love golf, and I'm a big fan of the game. However, I accept that many people don't like golf. So I want to open it up to the floor, to my fellow addicts, to give us a different metric of a unit of size that you might use to test or to describe the size of a boot. I'm going to go straight to Neil Clifford, please. What would you use?
Well, golf golf was really big before, wasn't it? But I think everyone's now converted because everyone's more into their health and their, longevity and their protein, and golf's a bit of a lazy bloody sport, isn't it? So everyone wants to keep alive for longer and not eat chips and have pints of beer at the bar, and you don't want to be away from the wife and the kids for all day because golf takes all day. So everyone's bought bikes, haven't they? So the bike has replaced golf. So it's a bike instead of a set of golf clubs, or if you haven't got a bike, you've gone and bought a cockapoo. So I think you can measure the size of a boot with how many cockapoos you can fit in it.
Yeah.
This is why I ask these questions, because I get these wonderful answers. Neil, thank you very much. Manish, what would you use as the new non-golfing metric for the size of a boot for when you drive a car once every 4 weeks?
3 boys in the car with you, 3 cricket bags, and the cricket bag becomes the metric.
Yeah.
You have to get 3 cricket bags in. That's the end of it.
Yeah. Okay. 3 cricket bags. Edward, what are you saying? Edward.
Well, I've written down here, but none of them make sense. The best answer I've got written down here is bodies, I think. Bodies. And so I'm going to caveat that. I don't mean dead bodies. I want, how many mates can you fit in the boot of your car? If you're in Cornwall because you want to go to the pub and you don't want to walk. So I'm going to use bodies. That's my only sensible answer that's not sensible because it doesn't deserve one.
Edward, how old are you?
Teenage why does that matter? I can go in the boot of a car.
Okay. I'm going to say this with a sense of trepidation now. Chris Cooper, what are you going to say?
Well, Boys and I talked about this earlier, and we had dogs breed to be determined, or bodies or body parts thereof. If you chop the bodies up, it's a bit more space efficient. Do you know you can bury up to 4 bodies on your own land, whether it's a back garden or a farm, up to 4 bodies before any regulatory intervention or oversight at all. So on the farm here, we've got 2 bodies buried. We've got space for 2 more. We've got Barney. People who watch the Clarkson's farm thing, every farm has a Caleb and a Gerald. We have a Keith and a Jack. They're kind of our Caleb. And we had a Barney who was like Gerald. He's buried in the farm. I mean, he was dead. I mean, we didn't just bury him. And Lynn's father was buried on the farm as well. So we've got 2 bodies buried on the farm. that means before regulatory intervention, we have space for 2 more bodies. So just FYI, no questions asked, bit of cash, we can sort you out. So I think you'd have, when I saw that Oldsmobile at Bicester yesterday, I looked at the boot of that and I thought, I reckon you could line bodies up in that fore and aft without having to chop or bend arms and legs or pull the head off. It's such a big boot. So I reckon body parts. Dog breed is good, but they get a bit stuffy and fidgety. So it's got to be bodies. I think whole bodies is the metric, not parts. Whole bodies is the metric.
So I wasn't so stupid. That's
No, not at
2 out of
No one
5.
said you were stupid. I thought you
No
were
one said
being
you were, no one's ever called you stupid, Edward. Many other things, but not stupid. Your teachers may have done that, but they'll rue the day. Now, I would say most of you got this spot on. There's an obvious metric that no one uses, and that's a bag that's allowed inside the cabin of an aircraft. That seems to be one of the things that many people carry in a car. So why the motor industry has decided to use the golf bag.
Yeah.
Most people don't play golf, and actually most people will go to an airport in their car. And it'd be handy to know that if you were going to go, for example, to the airport in your Boxster, you could get, each of you could have a cabin bag that went in the front of the back. That'd be good information to know, but no one seems to know that. So cabin bags for me is one of them. The other one is what I'd call knuckles full of supermarket shopping bags. I like coming out.
That's a good one.
Yeah. I like knowing I've got my knuckles full. I don't want 2 bags. I want 3 on each side.
3 on each side, yeah.
And I want to drag them like this, and I want to get to the car.
Yeah.
But there's nothing worse than getting to the car and going, shit, I can't get them in the boot, or I can't get them behind the seat. So I'd say it's cabin baggage or knuckles of supermarket shopping.
That's 2 good ones.
That is a good one. Although if you have got shopping, you've got to fill the whole boot floor full of those shopping bags, so they all sit up against each other.
But,
So
don't you carry stuff in the boot to mean that you can fill those spaces? I've always got stuff that I can make sure I fill.
Yeah, but then when the shopping's not in there, that stuff rattles around.
It does.
God, I've forgotten.
So or you put it. My favourite place is in that little space behind the driver's and passenger seat and the rear seat in the footwell.
Yeah,
I think you can get enough for a hungry growing family, at least a week shopping for a hungry growing family in an average family saloon. You could get enough shopping bags in there. Or if it's a monthly shop, you could fill the whole boot. But in an Oldsmobile, that was a lovely person who brought one to Bicester yesterday, I think you need some dead bodies as well. Otherwise, they're going to rattle around.
When was the last time you did a shop for a month for a young growing family, Chris Cooper?
I did once.
It amazes me. We have a delivery come every Sunday morning, and you literally couldn't fit another thing in the fridge.
Yeah.
And by Saturday night, the end of the week, it's empty.
Yeah.
But can I just say there is something quite interesting about the psychology of the day of your Ocado. So if you are a Sunday morning guy, we are a Monday evening family.
Okay. To be honest, my wife it comes at 8 a.m. It comes at 8 a.m. on a Sunday morning. That is 2 fingers up to me for sure.
That's just extraordinary. That's just not normal. I'm sorry, Edward.
Right, guys. So moving on to the 2-car garage. So
yes,
this is beautifully written. My eyesight's not very good.
Are we coming back to 296s and F8s on next week?
Yeah, we're going to have to. Sorry,
next week. Yeah.
You're a sought-after business turnaround specialist. I don't like the intonation there. You're a sought-after business turnaround specialist.
Yeah.
Returning to Western Tokyo for a 6-month contract. You've negotiated a 30 million yen. I love big denominations like that. About £150,000. A company car allowance. And while there is no age restriction, the customer's environmental credentials stipulates this must include 1 K car for city use. K car is a small car that fits certain dimensions and capacity regulations for Japan. They're tiny. The limit is 660 cc.
Yeah.
However, your weekend car has no limitations other than it must be Japanese. So you'll be able to indulge in your driving addiction on the surprisingly interesting roads in the nearby mountains and attend the odd track day and car event with old friends. If you exceed the business turnaround targets, you can retain any unspent allowance and the cars will be given to you with export costs to the UK included. I like the way that was written. So, and that was Colin Carfan. Well written, Bob.
Just to confirm, the max length of this car is 3.4 meters. The max width is 1.48, and the max height is 2 meters. And it helps you reduce your taxes, tolls, and insurance in Japan.
Oh no, the maximum height of the car is 6 feet 4 inches tall.
No, the maximum height is 2 meters.
Yeah, that's 6 foot 4.
Yeah, they look ridiculous, but they're capable.
It's like a Can-Am car regulation, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great. So let's go. Chris Cooper, you start with your 2 cars, please.
Okay, so I've obviously got quite a few.
But you've only got 2.
You've got 2.
So I think the weekend car, I may have mentioned this before, another, but the more I look at them, the more I love them. It's the Lexus LC 500.
Yeah.
It's got the motor that God made. There'll never be another naturally aspirated V8 like that. Hand-built Lexus, wonderful V8. The K car is really interesting. I went through Suzuki Cappuccino because, I mean, you would, wouldn't you? Suzuki small milky coffee.
Yeah.
That's your choice. Thank you very much.
Caterham 170 is a K car that the new Caterham owners who are Japanese wanted them to produce. But I think you'd go back in time. Honda S500, the original Honda car.
The original one, yeah.
Pretty little thing. I think
500 of Japan.
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, I'm not a sought after business turnaround specialist returning to Western Tokyo or indeed any other suburb of Tokyo. But if I was, that's what I'd have.
You've undersold yourself there, Chris, a little bit.
No, it's for
or,
others.
Or are you telling us something that we...
If others wish to confer Western Tokyo status upon one, I would gratefully receive
Edward, he did it quickly, so let's be thankful. Neil Clifford, what are you going to choose?
Honda Cube.
Yeah.
Because every time I'm in Tokyo, I'm like, I want one of those. They're so cool.
Yeah, that's good. Cool.
Like a Rubik's Cube driving along the road. And I'd have an R35 Nismo.
Yes.
If you're going to go Japanese, you can't fuck about. You've got to go the whole works. And I've just about done it for 150 grand. And that's, and I'd love to bring that back. So that's cool. Nismo, black Nismo.
Okay, I love it. Manish, what are you going to have?
Mazda R360. Looks like a Reliant Robin, but with 4 wheels in sky blue. It's just a gorgeous looking beast. And I'm going to go for the Chris Harris NSX. And I think you can just about buy one for the money. 10 grand on one, 140 on the other. Boom.
Nice.
Things. So, Edward Lovett, what are you going to go for?
So I've gone very modern here, and I'm probably well below the budget. So when we were out in New Zealand, and I'd never seen one of these before, but the Honda S660 Mugen Type R spec.
Yeah.
It's just, I didn't know what it was. It's such a cool looking thing.
Yeah.
It's such a cool looking thing. I did Google K cars earlier on just to see what it told me. And one of the pre-selected bits of information dropped down in Google. It says, "Are K cars safe?" And it said,
question.
"Not if you're the driver or the passenger, but yes, if you're another car."
That's fantastic.
Yes, if you're nowhere near it.
I promise you, I'll send that because that is absolutely what it said.
It's very good consumer advice.
Written by AI.
Yeah. And in terms of the modern car, you want that forbidden fruit that you can't have, and it doesn't necessarily need to be expensive. The forbidden fruit, and maybe a K car to a certain degree is forbidden fruit, but they did that GR MN Yaris special edition, didn't they? They launched it about a year ago at the Tokyo Motor Show. It wasn't a big change. There was, I think,
stand for Get Ready With Me. Is that? I see that on the internet all the time. Oh, that's GRWM.
Yeah, that's not. This is just it's 20 kilos lighter, a bit more torque, and a load of carbon everywhere. And
That was good.
if you're doing a few track days, and I haven't driven the hills of around Tokyo, but I'm guessing they're tight and curly and wonderful.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing a Yaris would be a pretty good car to go and do that.
Would be.
I think we've done quite well here. So the K car, there's only one K car for me, and it came to the UK in a weird way. And it was another one of these weird Daihatsus that had a one-make rally championship called, I'll read it out for you, the Daihatsu Kuore Avanzato TRXX R4. And we had a long-term one when I started, just after I started at Autocar, and it was utterly batshit crazy. It would do 60 in about 8 or 9 seconds. It would top out about 105. I also got involved in my first real road rage incident in one of those. And I'll tell you, I was on the A329 and a bloke nearly had me off the road in it. I don't think you could take it seriously, because if you've not seen a K car before on a UK road, it looks like it's half a car. It looks more mobility scooter than car. And this bloke nearly had me off the road. So I was incensed, and then he was swearing at me. So I followed him into the service station. The Shell station near Bracknell. And I got out to say to him, "Did you see what you did there?" And he was just laughing. He was just laughing at my car. He could not take me seriously. And when I said, "You nearly killed me," he said, "Have you seen your car?" And got in his car and left. He couldn't take me seriously. So there you go. That was a lesson learned. And the other car, Neil's almost right. It's got to be a Skyline. But for me, it's got to be R33, because I want a manual gearbox. And it's the Skyline of my start of my working career. It's got to have some V-spec bits on it, probably about 450 horsepower. It's got to make some whooshy noises. And when I speak about them, I don't understand why I've never owned one. So there you go. Avanzato.
What colour? What colour?
I want that purple colour.
Purple. Yeah, it's the purple. Yeah.
I love the purple.
Yeah.
How many of those? Did you buy one of those, Neil, or not? Did you buy an R33?
I had a 32, a 34, and a 35. Didn't have 33.
We need to get 33.
It's a bit roundy for me. I bought one off of who were the guys up in Liverpool?
Middlehurst.
Yeah, off Middlehurst, a 32, his own car for like 17,995 on Pistonheads, and thought legend entrepreneur, sold it for 22,995. They're about 50 grand now, aren't they?
Yeah, they were all his own cars.
But my R34 was one of 20 original UK cars in grey, the R34. So about 50 grand now.
Andy Middlehurst is turned into a Goodwood legend as well, hasn't he?
He is,
very quick round there.
Well, here we go. So we're going to.
I don't think we got Manish yet, have we?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
we have fun.
Jesus Christ! So we're not doing music this week. We're doing some YouTube videos. We're going to be quick, because my better half is going to punch me in the face unless I get out of here quickly. So here we go. Edward Lovett, what's your video choice on YouTube for this week?
Fine. I'm not going to try and fully describe it for you, but you can go and Google it when you hear it, but the link will be somewhere here. But if you Google Samir, you're breaking the car, you will have a great laugh. Now, this is not the normal rally accents that we hear in a rally scene, like we do Finnish co-pilots and the Welsh co-pilots that we know particularly well. But this hopefully will give you a little chuckle.
I can't wait for you to watch that. It's unbelievable. Neil Clifford, what are you going to go for?
I've been down a big YouTube Live Aid black hole. My brother was in the roof Live Aid doing the lighting. Did it for free for a mate. And I'm like, "Do you take any pictures?" He's like, "No, I didn't take a camera with you. I didn't think it would be that good." You're like, "Oh my God, you were in that." And the obvious one is the Queen, 20 minutes, everyone's seen that. The U2 Live Aid, even if you like U2 or don't, it's just incredible. That whole concert, there's 9 hours on YouTube, actually. You can really lose yourself.
That was sort of their first big break, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, that's what I'd watch.
Manish, what are you going to go for?
There was a TV series in the early 70s. I think it was called Sailor, following the HMS Ark Royal.
Yes.
And there's a very beautiful, I found it utterly inspirational section when you see the planes taking off
Phantoms.
and doing some, there were some
Buccaneers and
Phantoms,
Phantoms,
Buccaneers,
yeah.
and Fairy Gannets as well,
Yeah.
and some Seeking helicopters.
Yeah.
And it was all to Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here.
Yeah.
And the little twist in this is that the BBC, when they released it, couldn't license the music. So they put some old shite on. And I couldn't find the original. But some very clever person out there has rather beautifully put a live version of Pink Floyd over those exact bits. So I've sent the link, and it just makes my heart stop.
That's good.
every time I see
Yeah.
it.
That was Rod
Delicious.
Stewart theme music, wasn't it?
It
Yeah,
was. It
really.
began with I Am Sailing. It did
Yeah.
indeed.
Chris Cooper.
I got two. So the boys sent me
No.
You need to keep one up your sleeve.
BRM Chrysalis. But the one, it's a Skyline thing. I went through a Bathurst wormhole this afternoon.
Oh,
There's a 1987 Bathurst was biblically wet. And there's a clip, it's just of this, about 3.5 minutes.
the two-wheel drive one where he's sideways on slicks.
Glenn Seaton in a two-wheel drive Skyline. And the Australian commentator's going, oh yeah, he'll take it really, really sensible here. And he's like, up over the skyline, and then down the Big Dipper. And he goes down the Conrod Straight. And he said, he'll take it easy here. There's a big crest in the middle of the Conrod Straight, and he just unweights the car enough to goes. There's a very young Richard Hay commentating on that with his dad Neville Hay and a whole bunch of the Aussies who always, he'll take it very easy here. And on the screen, he's just going mental. So
That's good.
Glenn Seaton, 1987, Bathurst, Nissan Skyline. Peter Jackson sponsored Nissan Skyline.
I think the reason why these are so interesting is we get to lose ourselves in YouTube for an hour, and it's a terrible wormhole. And I'm increasingly aware of the fact that there's so much content out there now that's been surfaced that's so good. You can forget the films that really resonated when you first discovered YouTube. So I'm trying to go back to those. And Edward will get this one. I think many people who listen to this will. If you just type in Norma M20 onboard, Norma, Norma M20 onboard.
That is the one.
It's just, if an alien landed and said, what's driving? I'd give them that.
That is the one.
Extraordinary piece of drive. It's an amateur person in a Norma M20 with a 6-cylinder BMW engine in the back of it. And he goes up this French hill climb as a closed public road in a fashion that is so remarkable, but the noise, the physicality of the driving is all there. So just type in Norma, we'll put the link up, but Norma M20 onboard.
That is remarkable that you've just named that one. That's probably what got me into YouTube.
It's just driving, isn't
Nice.
it? Driving. So thank you so much.
French Wallace Mengies, who is the three times British hill climb champion. He's an amazing talent. I meet him every year at our Night of Champions. And he did that French hill climbing a couple of years ago. And he said, they are the mentalist. But anything French hill climbing, if you've got Shelsley water in your head, start again with French.
Yeah, this guy's
Brilliant.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much for tolerating us and our alcoholic beverages on episode 62. Neil Cliff is showing us his driving gloves. It's been a pleasure having you, and we will hopefully deliver some more content for you next week. Bye-bye.